What's up, everybody? This is Karak with ACG, and welcome to my first review of the HTC Vive VR headset. You know, I had talked about getting this headset a while ago, and originally my plans were to do a review early, but as I looked at it, I was like, you know what, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of different games and experiences you can have with it. I think this is one of those things that sort of needs to settle down for a little while so you can get an overall impression of not only the technology, but the experiences you can have on the system. As we move forward, I want to say thanks to everybody who's helped out on the patrons or tweeted out any of the videos. You guys help out, especially on some of these side things like a hardware review, which isn't the same as a software review. And by not being the same, one of the things I want to say is I'm going to make sure that this is slow because nobody has the patience to listen to me talk incredibly fast for what's probably going to be an incredibly long video. Let's just jump into it. I got the HTC Vive a while ago and started playing around with it, looking at different situations and different game experiences, playing some using the Revive and playing some of the Oculus games and seeing how those worked, and came up with a conclusion that I think is fair to the hardware, but is also fair to the consumer, which to me is the most important thing ever. Additionally, you will see more hardware reviews coming from me on different situations like this, different little experiences like this. It might not be a video card hardware review because so many people do those, but it might be hardware review around gameplay and around just augmenting that style. So let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to cover is about the base stations. Now, I really enjoy the fact that they're so small. They're nowhere near the size of, let's say, even a speaker on a 5.1 or 7.1 stereo system satellite. They're very small. Actually, some speaker systems might have ones this small, but it's really nice having I guess a base station that's this little when it comes to how well it tracks. Additionally, this connects with without the clamp on here, it connects to any kind of camera tripod and any type of camera connection that you could normally use if you wanted to mount something. So it's just got the screw on the bottom. One of the things I have to say is this. A lot of people talk about mounting them on tripods. A lot of people talk about mounting them to the wall. I feel that I've found what is really the slick, awesome midpoint of that. First of all, if you mount them to a tripod, deviation does go up. That's been tested. We've all seen that. There is a larger movement deviation than if they're mounted on a wall. If they're mounted on a wall, the reason why that deviation goes away is because they're effing mounted. However, here's one of the problems I think that occurs with the Lighthouse system as well as just HTC's VR system as a whole, but any system that's going to track you. They're all susceptible to something, whether it be extra light, whether it be a window and reflection, whether it be a large TV screen. And here's one of the things, many of us have those in our homes at some place. So what I did was I found what are called camera piston mounts. Now what those are is a single pole. They're not very expensive, especially for somebody who's already spent $800 on a Vive. They're about $23 a piece, and you only need two, of course. What do those do? Well, they basically sit between your floor and your ceiling as one long pole, and then you tighten them down and they push against the floor and ceiling, and they allow for you to mount anything on them that uses a clamp style interface. Now, what that does is two things. The first thing it does is it allows you to move them with ease. You basically undo a little bit of that tension so it comes off, and you can move it around your house, and then you can tighten it a little bit, and boom, you have a fully transformable system. Why is that important? Well, because the Vive at any one time could have an issue with some light that's on. If somebody else comes in a room and turns it on, if you have a reflection. I have a couple Curios, and with, Disney Infinity toys in them, whatever, those have got some reflectivity to them, and you get some weird deviations that occurs. I have a large screen TV, an 85-inch screen TV. That can cause issues. Well, what this does is this allows me to move it from the three rooms that I do recording in, whether it be the main room that I do the podcast with Cadiz in, whether it be this room, which is the bedroom, or whether it be the living room where we're doing a full experience with the HTC Vive. I cannot stress to you just how awesome they are. A tripod is great, but when you mount something, you have to realize that the base is quite wide. And you can talk to Cadiz about this, have had multiple issues with that. When you think about it, oh, I'm just going to mount something on the top, it's just a straight bar that goes down, and then you realize the base is so wide, it catches on things, people trip over them. It's actually sort of not really the safest event when you think about it. So what I did was I bought these pistons, mounted these base stations to them using the clamps, which are about $3 or $3 to $6, depending on where you buy them, and can move it anywhere, can mount them anywhere, can try all different kinds of setups. Very, very cool. So moving on from the actual getting them located somewhere where you like, how do they work? Well, they work really well. There's three channels that these things use, A, B, and C. A being by themselves, one lighthouse, B and C being shared. So one would be on B and one would be on C. Why would you ever use A? Why would you ever just have one lighthouse? Well, actually, there's multiple reasons. If you're using a smaller room and you're doing a sitting kind of situation, one works incredibly well. In fact, I'm assuming that one has a slightly wider brand of, or wider band for checking where you are, because many times I've found that A, just setting one on A, gives me a very good experience. Sometimes it almost feels better than having the two. Now, why is that? Well, when you look at the situation on how two works, actually what happens is those two are talking to each other the entire time, and any little interruption, you're going to get a warning in your VR system saying they've lost sync. Now, you can fix some of that by using what's called a sync cable that comes for free with the Vive. It's about 25 feet, looks just like a stereo 3mm extender cable, but it's got a male end on both sides. You plug it into each side of one of your base stations, and they talk to each other, and they transfer data a little better between one another. But in all honesty, I rarely use that anymore. I use them the way they're supposed to be, just B and C separated, or A by themselves. The sync cable does help a little bit, but I haven't found that it's been some dramatic increase, and that's most likely because I'm able to move mine around, and I would rather move them around than have one more cable in the house. One more cable, even if it's 25 feet, there's a chance somebody's going to trip on it, or a chance that somebody's going to step on it or crimp it, and it's going to be damaged. So the way they set up is really, really nice. The only issue you have, of course, is that each one has a plug-in. Luckily, they're two-pronged plug-ins, not three. So if you have an older house like I do, where you have a mixture of three-pronged grounded outlets and normal outlets, the older style, well, you can take these anywhere, plug them in, they're wireless, and they work. So moving on from there, I want to talk a little bit about where they plug into. Now, this base station that they plug into, I'm going to be brutally honest. I'm going to grab this. I'm not at all happy with the base station. I find that the base station is actually fairly shoddy. It's been taken apart by multiple different channels, and its interiors are not the best. This is the base station. This is where you plug in the headset, and then you plug in your HDMI, and you plug in your other systems into the back. Additionally, there's a problem with how it handles USB. So you only need one USB 3. However, this thing can corrupt quite easily whatever's going on in your USB stack on your PC. I've had it actually take every single USB resource when I plugged it in. Just 48, bing, just every USB 3 was immediately taken, and you get a warning saying all of your USB 3 devices or device openings have been taken. You can't plug any more USB 3s into this. It really happens no matter what. It takes a ton of resources, and it's very odd. There's definitely an issue there, because it at minimum should take 3, or at maximum should take 3. Instead, as I said, we've got video of this thing taking tons, and that's on different systems, and people talk about this all the time. Is that a no-go kind of situation? Of course not. You can easily still get this. You can get it to work. What I did was I bought a $23 USB 3 PCI slot card. So you put the card into one of your PCI slots, and it creates some more USB 3 resources, and I plugged just this into it. That stopped all the issues because that card was just running this. However, once again, on the inside, this is pretty crappy. Now, what that means is it also sucks up a lot of your signal from your HDMI cables. So that means HDMI, if you want to extend your distance, only certain HDMI cables will work here, and funny enough, some of the more expensive, nicer ones do not. Now, what's nice enough is so many people were having a problem with this that there are multiple web pages which will tell you HDMI cables that have worked. So I used that, and I found a red mirror cable that did work, which is really strange because it was far cheaper and not considered as nice as some of the other cables that were not working. I have some high-grade HDMI cables that just wouldn't do it, but the red mirror did, while the red mirror maybe doesn't work somewhere else. It's very odd, and it most likely has to do with some kind of signal modification that's going on in the box. Get it all plugged in. It requires one power source. That's it. The problem I have with this box continues with a couple things. First of all, the plugins where the HTC Vive plugs in is actually quite loose when it comes to the power, and there is no actual, I would say ridge to keep that in very well, and so that power can unplug quite often while you're playing. You want to make sure that there is a large amount of wire in front of this that allows for movement and not plugged in and directly streaming quite straight to the person playing, or there is a very high chance of this coming out. Additionally, same thing happens on the back. The power supply. blown away by the fact that this doesn't click when it goes in. It doesn't. It's all like easy unplug and plug in, which is great when you want to plug it in. But when you want to unplug it, it can come unplugged by simply moving, which is crazy. And yes, we've tested that. I know 6 other people with the Vives. All of them have the same issue. Now, does that mean everybody's going to have these issues? No, this is not what that's about. This is just reviewing what is going on in these and what you may experience. Just because somebody has an issue and somebody doesn't mean it's going to happen to everybody. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen to everybody. But it certainly needs to be mentioned, because that's only fair when you're looking at these kind of situations where an item costs $800. So, taking it apart, looking at it, it's okay inside. Actually, it's not. It's pretty much trash on the inside. It's just a system device that sort of, in all honesty, is an anti-piracy device. It's basically here to stop you from plugging in, and using this system where you're not supposed to. But moving on from there, talking about the wands. So the wands, many people complain about them being too light, not feeling robust enough. I have no problem with those. I also have no problem with dropping a Vive wand. A lot of people have replaced the straps, and that's great. You can, because the strap here is quite weak. What's nice is you do not need to remove the current strap. There's various ways in which you can just thread another support in and then put that support inside of this band here and connect them. And so you have a dual support system, the first one, and then your second one you put in. I don't use it. I play this thing every single moment of the day and I never drop it, but I've never dropped a Wiimote either. So when it comes to the wands themselves, they're sort of a sword gun, right? In their overall look, design, and feel. And I do like them. I think they work really well for gun. They feel right. Phasers, they feel right. For swords, they feel pretty good. Not great, but they feel much better than any other handheld device that you've got. There's a couple awesome bits about this, though, that I have to say and I have to mention. First, the clickable grip buttons. Now, why are those cool? Well, first of all, you have to grip them pretty hard to get them to go off, which is awesome because that means you can hold the Vive normally and not feel like you're always going to be hitting those grip buttons. Additionally, if you unclick them, it doesn't mean you're going to drop the damn thing. This is a very, very high design point. This is actually showing that some people actually thought this through. It's one of those situations where it's not a trigger where you let go of it and your finger comes off, and where you would let go of this and the entire wand would fall down. Instead, like I said, you have to grip those. You have to actually put some physical tension on those, but at the same time, you never feel like you're going to drop this thing when you do so. Why are the grip buttons important, and why do I talk about them so much? Well, one of the first games I played had a chain that you grabbed, and you pulled the chain down like this as you opened up a door. And I have to say, the moment I gripped this, and that meant I grabbed the chain and moved it, my brain was totally tricked into feeling I had a chain in my hand. It's little things like that, because you know what? You could have done it with the trigger, but your brain would be like, this feels weird. Am I sticking my finger into one of the loops of the chain? There's all these different little things that if you just go that one extra step, if you just go that one little extra bit, then the human brain can be so easily deceived and so easily fooled. I mean, that's how magicians make their entire living. So it works perfect. It works amazingly well. That grip button is one of the best advents to this. And it's one of the things I talk it up whenever I'm having friends come over and I show them demos. I'm like, check out that grip button. And it's one of those things where it makes you feel like whatever they want you to feel you're grabbing in the game, you're grabbing. Trigger works well. And then you, of course, have their front-facing haptic feedback kind of, I guess, pad, whatever you want to call it. The reason why this is nice is because even in some games right now, they're showing that it can be split up into various little segments and it can become many buttons. It looks like it's just one big button, but because of the way it works, it can be many buttons, including in a game I just recently played where you were zooming in through a sniper scope. You could use your finger and you could do this around the edge of that and zoom in finer detail. So you know how in some games you zoom in 1 time, then 2 times, then 4 times? Well, this would allow you to go 2, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, and do it with fairly high fidelity. Occasionally I would jump a little too far, occasionally I wouldn't jump far enough. But the ability for me to do that, instead of going 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 4, 2, 1, it really does add to the experience. As a whole, I would say I like these a lot. They're 1 for 1. That means when you get these things running and you're really playing around with them in the game world, it feels real. They feel tangible. When I was playing Vanishing Realms, it felt like I was holding a sword. And as somebody who's studied various sword fighting techniques, the fact that I could tell the people watching saying, watch this and tell me if this looks different than what I was just doing. And all of that was completely one-for-one accurate on the screen. You could see the change from Kenjutsu to Rapier. That is fantastic. So I love them. I think the wands are great. I think they're a very good design. Originally, I wanted more buttons, but as I've seen now, this is, that front fat pad is able to be used in various other ways. So really, really cool control interface so far. Is there the chance or the ability to have better control interfaces? Yes. But I've already played, and I'm sorry, I am under NDA. I am playing a certain game right now that has you use two of these, like sticks in a jet. And you're doing this. This is it. And you're flying completely just holding them. You can even put them on your lap so that you have a rest, or you can put them on the edges of your chair, and it works perfect. The fidelity is almost higher than it's much higher than a mouse, actually. This is one for one, and it just feels right. But the ability to just move around and fly your spaceship like that is awesome. It felt completely real, and having that physical item in your hand is far different than, let's say, faking it with a mouse. So moving on to the headset. Now the headset, I've had to modify my headset in multiple ways, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we've got the headset here. How do I feel about it? Well, comfort-wise, it's fine for me. I know a lot of people have issues. A couple things that are nice are the glasses. They have the ability for somebody to wear glasses. They have little entries there for the glasses that keep that pressure off the side of your face. It works really well. Different ability to move those lenses in and out, as well as your one ocular distance adjuster. So you have a couple of adjustments on here. You have the forward-facing camera, which is awesome because as I've checked that, it can see very far forward. I would say at least arm's distance. Now, why is that cool? Well, I'm just waiting for a developer to try to do hand gestures using that camera in-game. Because it seems like if you were playing a Rainbow Six game, let's say, and you went like this, that camera can pick that up. I've tested that camera. It can pick up a ton of stuff. It can pick up individual digits. So it'll be really interesting to see if somebody sort of goes with that and tries to see what they can do with that camera when it comes to hand gestures, when it comes to picking things up or doing things where you wouldn't even need the wand in one hand. Maybe one hand is the wand because that's your gun, and the other hand is fireballs, and you're playing, Warhammer 40,000 as some kind of evil elder creature or something like that. It'd be great to see what they can do with that. The wire, everything, very taut, very strong. I have rolled over it with a chair on accident a couple times. I've had people step on it with high heels a couple times, and it's stayed together. However, when it comes down to the HTC Vive, I think it's a standard headset. What I mean by that is it's heavier. It's like any VR headset, a little bit heavy, a little bit cumbersome. Over time, you will always feel that weight on your face. So be aware of that. Be aware of the fact that these, I've been able to play for probably 5 or 6 hours with maybe a couple breaks for food or whatever. And I've felt that it works, but for most people, they're probably not going to want to play that long. There is some weight on the face that occurs. Where the Rift has weight in a different area, this will have weight there. There are tons of mods people are already trying to do. Sleeping masks with the eyes cut open and put where the normal foam is here offer a closer view and a little bit, easier feel on the face, which is nice. They're a little slicker, though. They don't grab, and so people have had issues with a wobbly headset. Now, when it comes to the strap on the back of your head, it is true that it feels like it rides up above your little birth nubbin there on the back of your head. And it can feel like it'll come off when you look down. It won't, or it hasn't for me, but it has felt like it every time. There are various ways to adjust the top strap to get that a little lower, but in the end, it's never feeling just right. And there are, once again, mods. Welder's mask mods are some of the best, where somebody gets a welder's mask, the interior snips off the edges, and puts it inside of the band. And you're then, and you can hot glue that in there, and then you basically are putting on the welder's mask onto your head. And there's ways to get it so it still sucks up close to your eyes. And I've tried that, and it works well. It's unfortunate that the HTC Vive requires so many mods to, get comfort, but that's the way it is. And the last mod I want to talk about is earpieces. No matter what I did, I was never able to get this to really give me that solid feeling of musical presentation on the Vive, where the Rift has pretty good earphones, not the best. The Vive has none. You plug your own in. Well, here's the problem. You can't see, so you got to figure out how to get them into your ears. I mean, we had friends having to put in earbuds for people. It was crazy. So what I did was I did one of the mods that people talk about, where you plug it in, you plug in a headset earphone piece that you want, and you use magnets or any other connective device, and you you connect the pieces in so they're in all the time. Right now you'll see black tape of all things. Now why is that? Well, because I just tried this new style of mod to see before I mount these fully or before I decide exactly where they're comfortable. Magnets work really well. You can hot glue a magnet on the inside of one earphone and then put it on one side of the strap and the magnet on the other side, and that'll hold it there as well. There's various ways to do it. Here's the problem. You're doing it all the time. This headset needs a lot of, I would say, a lot of comfort style modifications. And there's always something with it that just feels a little off. I'm just being brutally honest here. Every single person I've talked to in our group who has one of these feels the same way. There's always some little tiny aspect to this headset that feels off. Now, does that mean that it's different than any of the other headsets? No, because the Rift feels off to me as well in various ways. So it's just the advent of every person's head is a different damn size. Every person's head is a different damn shape. And so just me playing it, giving it to my wife playing it, giving it to Cadiz, you have 3 different head sizes there, and they all require different modifications, including to the earpieces. So you have a good number of situations where it's not like a mouse where most people's hands are the same, work the same. So somebody can just put their hand on there and good to go. This is a situation where you're putting on your head, so you got to make sure the earpieces are over your ears and stuff like that. When it comes to it technologically, when it comes to the headset as a technological piece, the screen door effect is quite bad. You just can't lie about it. It's quite bad. In fact, the screen door effect, just like the Rift, is so bad that in many dark games, it makes them darker, because the screen door effect is where you can see that separation between pixels, because this is not very high resolution. So what you get is a situation where in darker games, and I noticed this tremendously during Pool Nation VR, when you go into some of the darker areas of the bar, it can actually be a little difficult to see what's actually going on, because you already have a screen that is not like a normal, whatever you have, 1080p, 1440 or 4K screen in front of you. You've got this smaller resolution screen in front of you, and it's jammed up near your eyes. It's almost like sitting really, really close to your monitor and being able to see the little lines between all the pixels. But you're so close that you can really see those easily. Additionally, there is no adjustment for brightness and contrast inside this headset at all. In fact, luckily enough, a couple different free programs do allow for that, or allow for you to do something else and change the brightness on the screen. In fact, I use Vorpix, which isn't free, but Vorpix has a movie viewer that allows you to change the brightness of the screen and the brightness of what's around you, which is nice because, as I've stated in multiple reviews, the brighter the game is, the more vibrant the game is, the better these headsets perform by far. It's not even a contest of how they perform when it comes to brighter lights. Everspace looked clean and crisp, where Elite Dangerous, even on the Rift, because I have both, even on the Rift, appeared super dark and a little bit hard to see. It never really appeared crisp and easy to see like Everspace did, but Everspace has a different graphical presentation. It's much brighter. It's much more in your face with its color work. And that isn't to say that at times Elite Dangerous or House of the Dying Sun didn't give those, but it's at a lesser amount. And so I really do hope at some point in the future we get some software adjustments in Steam Beta VR, and we have that ability to adjust those. The headset itself, once you get it on, you can see the lens circular, you can see some CA in there, some chromatic aberration. There's a couple little issues there, but when you jump into VR and when you're playing a game, do those go away? Yeah, for the most part they do. So I certainly want to make sure that people understand that a lot of these issues, once you really get into a game, it is possible for you to ignore them or for them to be removed from just your overall thought pattern because you're playing a game and you're enjoying yourself and you're just moving on. However, some games really pointed out, Space Pirate Trainer being so dark, it looks great, it's got the Tron-like effects, but at the same time, because of the darkness of the overall level mixed with the low resolution and the pixel lines, it can be darker than it should be. Pool Nation VR, of course, probably one of the worst ones I've seen so far, even though the game was great, and I certainly reviewed it as a buy. So that is the major pieces, okay? So you've got your major pieces there. Let's talk a little bit about software, because I think software is a big deal when it comes to getting these things to do what they want to do. The first is Steam's VR, panel that you turn on in Steam when you want to run the Vive. And I have to say, man, it's terrible. It looks like it was created by some kid in MS Paint. It looks bad. It doesn't have any of the kind of, I guess, flourish or overall polish you would expect something that comes from Steam to look like. So when you turn it on, its options are in weird places. It has 2 or 3 windows that pop up in various ways. It's terrible looking from a UI standpoint. And it's funny because I know some people who work in UI, and the first thing they mentioned when they saw it, some of them work in Unreal games, some of them work in Unity games, the first thing they saw is, who in the designed this? It's just bad looking. It requires a completely different set of thought patterns when you're looking for things like within the developer menu, what you want to do. In fact, many times you'll hear people say, I didn't even know that option existed until I dived into some developer menu deep down, and there it was. Now, is that a ding on this as it works? No, not at all. In fact, you can get through it and you can work through it, but its lack of true documentation and lack of really understanding what things do is a situation where if you are jumping into the Vive, you'll want to play around with that, those settings and understand what they do. Go online, find some good documentation on them, because the documentation isn't that good either. And that always needs to be running if you're going to play a game, by the way. So if you start a game without it, some games start that automatically, but for the most part, you just want that running in the background. So playing different games and experiencing this in different ways, I want to talk about it in 2 ways. I want to talk about it as a sitting experience, right, with just head tracking, and I want to talk about it as the full room experience. And head tracking sitting doesn't necessarily mean you're not using the wand. So head tracking while you're sitting and using it as a seated experience, there's a lot of games where this really does work well. And the lack of the ability to adjust contrast and brightness is one thing, but overall the head tracking is great, and you can play this for a good seated experience like I did with House of the Dying Sun, and you can really get into the game, look around, everything looks really good. And what's nice about some of these games, especially that game, some don't do this, but that game allows you to adjust graphical options till your heart's content. So you can actually get that game looking fairly good using anti-aliasing and internal resolutions. I was really happy with how that game had its settings accurate and correct and more modular than a lot of games, which is high, medium, and low. The Nest, high, medium, and low, and I'm telling you, I switched between those. The difference is so dramatically small that it was almost impossible to notice until I realized a little bit of specular light on a couple different rocks, and that was it. So you jump in, seated experience, very good. It's good. It's darker than the Rift, I think. It's got a little bit worse vision, just visual impact than the Rift. I think the Rift is just a little bit brighter and has a little bit better lenses, or it feels like it does. But you can play this, you can use it. Seated experience also means things like Vorpix. So you've seen me do at least 3 videos where I talk about traditional games running through Vorpix. Let's talk about that for a second. Vorpix also works on the Rift, but I want to talk about it in regards to what you're getting when you buy these headsets. There are no real AAA games. Even Insomniac's new game, I would say that's the only AAA game, really, when you think about it. AAA, not even meaning a massive title, but just a full-on, full-fledged, real title, real game, where you feel like, hey, this is something that could exist in some kind of form as a normal game, and they could charge a fairly good amount for it. So you don't have a lot of those games. What you do have is something like Vorpix, which can cheat and put 3D and put head movement into some games, depending on what game it is. Alan Wake works well with this. Life is Strange works incredibly well, and I'm continuing to look at other games that work. We know Fallout works for some people. I haven't been able to get it to work. I'm trying to get Dragon Age Inquisition to work as well, because I heard that once you get that set up, that might actually be a good game to sort of demo Vorpix. We'll see, though, because some people are saying you can't get 3D on. When you jump in there and you're playing an older style game, and let's say I'm playing Life is Strange, the ability to look around with the headset within that worldview, even though it's a third-person game, is dramatically increasing the immersion. I'm telling you, I beat Life is Strange all over again using just the headset. Fantastic feeling of immersion versus atmosphere. Like I say, atmosphere is when you look at a monitor and you see something through it. You're inside of a house and you're looking through a window at the rainstorm outside. Immersion is when you walk outside and you're in that rainstorm. And the ability to play Life is Strange instead of looking at a screen, but being inside the game world and being able to look around and having everything just work was awesome. Do I suggest people get Vorpix? No, it's glitchy and a little bit buggy, but you know what? You spent $800 on a Vive, so you might end up having a little bit extra. So I just try to give you guys some heads up on that. I like that system. I like that you can inject 3D in some games, not all games, but some games. And we see that there's at least 3 other companies working on something just like this for Vive and Rift owners. So that's cool. Seated experience, I would say, works fairly well here. When it comes to the open air experience, the room-sized experience, Vive has no match because there is no other competitor that does something like this, and it works incredibly well. Whether you're using walking to move or whether you're using teleportation, which I'm going to be honest, I bitched about teleportation prior to using the HTC Vive, started to use it and realized not only does it work, but in many ways, the way a human works, humans, we're pretty crazy, awesome creatures when you think about it, right? We can look at something, get into something, and start to work it very quickly, regardless if it doesn't work like the systems we're accustomed to. I don't know about you guys, one of the first times I saw this was playing Strider on the Sega Genesis, and the last level flipped upside down, and so every movement was backwards and upside down. And yes, it was harder, but quite quickly your brain is like, boom, I got this. And you can figure it out and you can start doing it. Well, the jump is much less here with the Vive and jumping into these titles and using teleportation versus walking. So teleportation is very cool, blinks out for a second, you blink in somewhere else. Used in fantasy games, hey, maybe you just teleport. Like you can sort of lie to yourself and pretend that's the fiction of the game world. It works very well. And I was able to play games like Vanishing Realms and really feel like I was there. Really absolutely feel like I was there. In fact, I was getting so into Vanishing Realms that I was learning that I could teleport while fighting, because I would just take the hand that was holding the wand for teleporting and flick it behind my back and just tap it and teleport a step back. So I was dodging sword strikes as they were coming in, and it just worked. And does it work as well as if I had leapt back? Maybe not, but here's one of the positives. You also don't have to worry about cables and stepping over them and stepping on them. So room scale works. I like it. It's 1 for 1. If you have these things set up, it works really well for tracking you. And those experiences are something that's beyond a normal experience. You have bow and arrow games where you're leaping and moving and ducking. Those work. You have games like Budget Cuts where you're trying to sneak through an area and you're fighting off robots and you're ducking and you're moving out of the way of laser fire and stuff like that. It works. Room scale is the future. But movement will always bother people, whether you have one of those virtual treadmills where you put on the little booty footies from a fab and you run around on a slick surface, or you use teleportation. That's where the big issue is getting us. That's where we're running into problems, and it's where the Vive takes that step back from reality and sort of still continually reminds you that even if you can work it like I was, that it's not perfect. It works really well, though. I have to say, when you are able to walk around a level like Vanishing Realms, walk around someplace like in Budget Cuts, it just, the feeling of being there it's insane. It's dramatic, and it really lifts the entire title up that next level. When it comes down to it, everything together is a total package. The one thing I think that people need to understand is you need a powerful video card and a powerful CPU to run these titles, okay? So it's not going to look as good resolution-wise, and you need to get about 90 frames per second, 45. There's reprojection and little tricks here and there, but you need a good frame rate, and that means that they sacrifice resolution at times. But if you have a pretty good computer, you'll be able to run this. You'll be able to use it full, room scale and stuff like that. Room scale, by the way, I've found that almost every single game that says that whatever its size is for room scale, even if I have that room scale, I have to almost cheat and make it think that it's a bigger, because it sort of, I would say it sort of hinges on safety. So if it needs 2 meters, then if I go to 2.3 and say that's the area, then it'll be all, okay, thanks. But if I go to 2 and I know that's 2, the system will be like, your area is too small for this. So there's some issues there, and I know the size of the living room. It's my living room, and I measure it. But you have those issues. So what do I think of the Vive, and is it a consumer product? Is it a buy, a wait for a sale, a rent if it was possible, or a never touch? This is most definitely a wait for a sale. It's in no way, shape, or form is this a consumer product. I'm just being brutally honest. It's not. It's not a consumer product. It's got too many caveats and too many problems, and it's got too many situations where users are required to work around it to even get it to work. to get it to work the way they want, to have music and sound, and make sure that you can switch it with a person who's next to you. VR is great. $800 is not. In no way, shape, or form do I think somebody should go out and buy this. Now, if you trip suddenly and fall and you stand up and you have a Vive in your hand, you're ready for some awesome experiences. You absolutely are. I certainly don't regret having one. Do I regret buying one? No, because the channel needs reviews and I want to review VR titles. But as a consumer, would I feel a great deal of consumer remorse for purchasing this if it was just as a consumer to play? Oh, it would be massive. It would be massive. They're not ready for prime time. The Rift is not ready for prime time. These are not consumer products, guys. These are products for the tech heads and nerds who want to play some games, hack to get some games to work, and deal with an extraordinary number of issues, whether it be needing more power and needing to buy even more stuff for your PC, or just having to worry continually about stomping all over wires. They are not ready for prime time. I urge you, if you're thinking about getting one, to go and check them out. There are demo stations. If a friend has one in town, go and get those. In fact, there's a lot of people that are really cool on the Vive Reddit forums and stuff like that who are out there stating, hey, if you want to come check this out, come to my house and check it out. Because I think that really having it for a moment is one thing, but when you really get down and dirty into it and you start using it in various aspects, that's really where you're going to decide, is this worth it or not? As an experience, when I get a new game, that really shows me how awesome it is. Pool VR Nation is fantastic to play. It feels like you're playing pool, and as somebody who has friends with pool tables and getting to play pool all the time, it was awesome to feel like I was pretty much playing pool. But at the same time, there are a lot of caveats. There's all kinds of issues, whether it be the resolution, the super dark, the screen door effect, that kind of thing, or just the overall weirdness of plugging in the breakout box and having it suddenly say you have 48 USB devices plugged in, or the shoddiness of the front end. It's a system that is not worth the $800. It's certainly something that I think if they fixed a lot of those issues, it would be. But I don't feel comfortable telling consumers they should run out and get one. I feel comfortable telling consumers if they have one that it's friggin' awesome and we can all enjoy it, but you understand there's some caveats there. And I feel the same way about the Rift. I think right now, neither one of those, there's no way in any other environment, if this was a product, I would be up in arms and just completely be like, this is in no way, shape, or form a consumer product. If this was something like in the airsoft industry, I'd be like, how dare you sell this to people? But it's not. It's in the computer industry, and the computer industry is known for pushing technology forward at, I would say, the great expense of its users. And that's what we've got right now. We've got these systems that have the potential to be amazing. Are they now? No. But if you accidentally get one, then look me up and we'll play some Vive games together because it's pretty fantastic. It's just not $800 fantastic. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked this review. It was fun doing. I'll continue playing these games, continue reviewing them. Very cool at times. The headset, very, very fun. Room scale, very fun. There's a lot to like about these systems. Unfortunately, there's also a lot to dislike. So anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, thumbs up. Maybe check us out on Reddit. Maybe tweet about the video. That would really help. Maybe tell other people about the channel. If you dislike the video, give it a thumbs down. As always, peace out.